Hello, everyone, and welcome to this extremely special conversation between Madhukar Shukla and me. And it's special for many reasons, particularly that Madhukar Shukla is also my Baba. So it's very weird to call him Madhukar Shukla. Um, this is a conversation about your upcoming workshop called Telling Your Story, which you're going to be doing for Living Bridges on October 29th. And it's following the Living Bridges training scheme in which we talked a little. In the previous workshop, we did something on finding your voice, and now it's about telling your story, the self as a facilitator for social change. Um, and I'm excited because I was thinking about it and I realized that the person I learned the most about storytelling from is you. And I think certain incidents related with Lord of the Rings came to mind as I was thinking about this interview. So, so I'm thrilled and welcome and thank you for playing with me on this interview, Baba.
Okay, thank you.
What does storytelling have to do with social change?
Okay, so first thing, as human beings, we are storytelling animals, right? So whenever we meet, whenever we, I mean, even if I say that, I went for a walk or I enjoyed this, that's a story. That's saying this is what happened to me. This is the kind of person I am. And there is something about good stories. And when I'm saying good stories, I'm not talking about stories which have a, moral at the end. So there are 2 points to appreciate. One is that good stories are open-ended. They stimulate the imagination. They leave the listener or the reader to find their own meaning. Something which I think Hannah Arendt, who was a German philosopher or political theorist, said they reveal the meaning without the error of defining it. Those are the good stories. So the reader or the listener finds their own meaning in those stories. The second thing is that any collective, whether it's a society, whether it's a community, whether it's a family, or even a group of friends, they're connected through a common story. There's something that's the thread which they have, which define that who they are, what is the right way to live, how to take decision, what are the possibilities which they have or possibilities which they don't have. For example, if somebody says, I come from a family who fought for the freedom struggle, it's saying, the kind of person I am. It's saying the kind of things I would like to do, or which are appropriate for me to do, which I think these are the values which I hold. These are the possibilities which I see in the current situation. So that's a good story. And social change happens when people change their stories. When the community or the society, when they change the stories which they are living, then they see different possibilities. It may be for good, it may be for bad, right? The change may be, some may feel it's for good, someone may feel it's for bad, but there's a change in the story which changes the society. So that's what storytelling has to do with the social change.
So is it like you're saying ki if our collective story about who we are or who we want to be changes, then that's where social change can come in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This workshop for me is quite interesting because it's bringing your background as a psychologist and your quite a lot, enormous experience with social entrepreneurship together. So I guess in your experience with social entrepreneurship, how do stories play a role specifically in this field? Like, maybe a couple of examples would be wonderful as well.
Okay. So, I mean, what I have found in social entrepreneurs use stories to communicate what they're doing. Also to involve people in what they are doing. I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, if you listen to Professor Mohammad Yunus, the founder of Grameen Bank, there is one story which he repeats every time. The story of when he went for a walk in the village nearby his university in Chittagong and met this lady, Sufia Khatun. Saw her making bamboo stools, and he asked her how much she earns, and she said hardly anything, because she was taking the raw material on loan from the money lender, and with the condition that she has to sell her produce to the same money lender on a price which he decides. So she was in that. All she needed per stool was just about 25 cents. And there he felt that something can be done. So he said, let me find out. And he asked his students to do a survey in the same village and found that there were these 42 people who were in the clutches of the money lenders, not who were hardworking, who were well, able-bodied, but all they needed was $26 at the rate in 1970s.
Wow.
Right. So that, and he said, then I can do that. Right? So, and that's the way he narrates it. Or if you look at another person, which I think you and I both know, Anshu Gupta, founder of Poonj. So there is a story which he always narrates about how he met this old man who used to carry the unclean dead bodies for the Delhi police.
Yeah.
And he said that Jado, and he used to get some 20 rupees for each of those bodies to the crematorium. And he said कि जाड़ों में तो धंधा बहुत बढ़ जाता है, टाइम नहीं मिलता गर्मी में. And then he also narrates how during some national disaster, he and his wife, they took out 67 clothes from their wardrobe, and suddenly said, 2.5 years of a wedding and marriage, and here we have 67 clothes lying, which we don't need. Yeah. So if you look at these 2-3 stories, there are 2-3 very important points about them. One, they are telling their personal stories. They're not saying this is something. They said this is what happened to me, right? And these are stories told in a way which one can identify with. कि हाँ ये तो मेरे साथ भी हुआ. One can because people have seen or experienced similar kind of things. They may not have noticed what they noticed, right? But they have seen, and they also inspire, because somewhere in the stories also there's a solution to this. Right. So this is when you said what social entrepreneurs do. They use these stories, and and virtually all social entrepreneurs I met, there is a story which it's almost like a script, But every time they narrate it, it's almost like they're narrating it for the first time.
Right.
So.
How do narratives of self shape the world around us?
Yeah, so if you refer to the last question about where I mentioned about Muhammad Yunus and Anshu Gupta, so if you see what they described were their narrative, their story was what many others would have seen, but would not have seen from that lens, from that eye, right? So when they describe the same event, suddenly the listener or the person who finds, oh, yeah, I have seen this. This is what is happening. So although they are describing a personal experience, so they didn't see that. Those people who had seen the same event but did not see the same meaning, or didn't see the same story. Or it's quite likely even Muhammad Yunus may have seen this in all the walks which he must have taken through the village, must have seen that lady many times. But at one point of time, suddenly he stood by and looked at her and talked to her, and suddenly the meaning of what she was doing changed, and therefore the meaning for him about what is happening around him also changed. So in changing their narratives, what they are describing is a new story not only about themselves in which they found meaning, but also for others to find a new meaning in what they have been seeing.
Right.
So So that's why I say, in the narrative of self shape the world around us, both in terms of the way we perceive the world, as well as people around us, how they start perceiving the world.
Yeah. And I would imagine that also has a really big impact on how we perceive ourselves in relation to the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it starts from self.
Yeah.
It starts a narration about oneself, about what happened to me, and then it becomes a collective story, right, in a way.
So how does it become that collective story? Like how will, if I'm changing the narrative of my self, and my relationship with what I'm witnessing, the meaning changes. How does that help with social or community transformation?
Yeah. So when people find a new meaning, it may be one person, it may be two person, it may grow. That's why I said, that's why I gave examples of Muhammad Yunus and Nishu Gupta. Then they repeat the story. In every conversation, if they have a lecture or if a talk or something, they talk about what happened that day. So so people start perceiving that it becomes so. So when I am changing and sharing my story of myself, that how it changed, it is also a story of how the world changed for me, or the possibilities it had. So when community adopts it, people I work with, the people I interact with, when they adopt it, it becomes a force for change. For example, if I narrate a story that here was this guy who, let's say, this is something which actually happened. Met a person in South Africa who had been kicked out of number of jobs, was addicted to drugs, was doing chota mota crime, till he became part of one initiative which was trying to get these people, youngsters who were drug addicts or dropouts, to change themselves, to start their own venture. And he said, I don't know anything. I've been good for nothing in every job. And they said, what are you good at? And so he narrated, he said, I thought for about a week. And he said, I'm an expert in being unemployed. I'm an expert in being kicked out of the job. And I know what one feels at that time. I know what kind of support people require at that time. So he built his whole venture around this story. So he changed his story from I'm good for nothing to I'm an expert in unemployment. I'm an expert on a person getting kicked out of the job. And that became a story for many others, because other people also his clientele was the same kind of people. They also changed. So that's how it has a ripple effect.
Right. I was just thinking that it's a ripple outwards. One person changes how they look at it, and many people who relate with the same meaning would change that. So that brings me to the end of my questions. This has been surprising and wonderful and delightful to interview you in this formal grown-up manner, and not just as your daughter.
To be interviewed by you also in a first.
This is a first.
Yeah.
This would be another one of those stories that we can tell people later. So please come join Madhukar at his workshop on telling your story, the self as a facilitator for social change. This is on 29th October from 5 to 7:30 p.m. At Living Bridges, and all the details will be in the description below. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Baba.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Right. Bye-bye.